Good morning and welcome to Caring for Me, Caring for You, a thought and a prayer for the week. I want to welcome you. I'm Greg Johnson and I am back in New York City. At least physically I am. I'm still a little bit jet lagged, so I'm up quite early this Sunday morning as I prepare to worship at the Marble Collegiate Church for our All Saints Sunday. And it's always very, very special, as today is very special. And I want to thank so many of you who have already telephoned and sent lovely birthday messages. Yes, today it's number 79, and I give great, great thanks. I've always loved the fact that my birthday comes on this very special weekend of All Saints' Day and today All Souls' Day. And my recent trip to Bali was one of the times where that is so precious. You've heard me speak before about one of the many, many gifts of my life in Bali, and this was my 168th visit there. The curtain, the veil, whatever word you want to use between the human and the divine, the human and the spiritual, between this world and the next, is very, very thin, as it is in many other parts of the world. That's not something that can be said for America because that really is not the case. But in other worlds, where they have far less materialness and material items, there's enormous gratitude for that which they have and enormous remembering, spending time knowing they are part of the ancestors who have gone before, and that they one day too will be the ancestors. And so as I was flying back, I left on Halloween in the 31st in Bali and flew from Bali to Singapore, and then 19 hours from Singapore direct to New York. And it's always a wonderful time, a time that I put into action because I'm not very much about watching movies and that sort of thing. But I usually use the time from an AA point of view going over. I look at the 12 steps. I space them out over the 19 hours and I get a macro version of the 12 steps. And then on the way back, I tend to do the traditions, something that we don't spend a lot of time, or at least I don't, and begin looking at them in a macro way as well, and just simply being so grateful for the gift of recovery and being a very grateful recovering alcoholic now for many decades. But I also use this time, and particularly I did last night as I went to bed. I had my prayer time, but then I spent time just giving thanks, starting way, way back in Wisconsin, for piano teachers, for family, for grandparents, for other relatives, for relatives who were extremely important in my life, who knew that I was different and not going to be staying in Wisconsin all that long, which proved true, and then moving on to my life in Rock Island and the 60 plus years that I've now spent here in New York City, as well as my time in our beloved Bali. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do, to look back and to see memories, dreams, some fulfilled, some that weren't fulfilled in the way I certainly had thought they might be. But the steps to getting to that hoped for ending truly led to something far more exciting. As all of you know, ministry for me from the very beginning in my life was my calling, and I knew it. But I also knew that certainly as a gay man, this was going to be different. It wasn't going to be the traditional ministry, and it's proved to be exactly right. I was blessed to get into the world of family caregiving. And this trip, where we celebrated so many accomplishments of the Sahaja Foundation, thanks to Donnie, my husband, we were privileged to be part and to create a pilot which became known as the Sahaja Bali model. And it's begun in Denpasar, but it's for the entire nation, slowly growing. But it is now very securely set. And on the day that Donnie and I, decided we were going to celebrate my birthday because he's working today, I'm going to be over at the church, and we both knew we'd both be in jet lag at this point. So we took a particular day and we went up into Ubud to a fantastic restaurant. I've talked to you about it before, Bebek Tempe Sawa. It's everything wonderful about Bali, as it's been for many years. The rice fields, the bamboo, the terraces, the music. It was absolutely wonderful. And we had a fabulous lunch. And then Donnie said to me, "We've all got a surprise for you." And I couldn't imagine what he meant by "we all" and "a surprise for you." So I have learned long ago that Donnie is the planner of the world. And so I simply said, "Okay." And we got in the car and we drove back down to the Denpasar area. And as we got closer, I began feeling that it's going to have something to do with Sahaja, but I wasn't sure what it was. Because the leaders of Sahaja, the five of them, each work for different major healthcare industries in Bali. Our chairman has just returned, in fact, from addressing the World Health, WHO, the World Health Organization, the Conference of Ministers. Another one of ours is constantly in travel throughout Indonesia as the head of the nursing school, ITIKAS. So I knew, so we've never had a physical place for all of us to come together. We've used restaurants, we've used our villa, we've used all sorts of places, and that was fine. But there had been a goal of having a place, a physical place that says, "This is Sahaja." Well, as we drove down the road, I began to know what was happening. Now, I'm getting teary already telling this story. But as we got closer, there were some of the staff and some of the volunteers, and they opened the doors. And Donnie and I drove in, and there it was, Rumah Sahaja, the Sahaja House, from which we do all the now of the administrative necessities, and there are many. We also are beginning a daycare program for the people in the immediate area, and it's getting great response. In addition, it's the venue from which we take all of the supplies and the training that's been done for the volunteers, and everyone gathers as we go on each month to different villages throughout the lower Bali area. And a week ago Sunday, a week ago today, we were in Kelating, and I finally learned how to say it. We were in Kelating, and it was absolutely marvelous. Over 150 people, and a portion of them in their very finest costumes as part of the village choir and angklung. They shake the bamboo. It's gorgeous. And some of you have heard that on some of the tapes we have here. This was unbelievable. And it was probably the most wonderful birthday gift I could imagine. And of course, I became very teary. But I became very teary for a reason that the rest, Donnie knew it, but the rest of them didn't. This trip was also special, and I'm tying these two together because it's exactly what it's about. On October 5th, I had a lovely memorial service with many of our dear friends at the Indian Ocean in memory of my son, Iwan Putra, Iwan Putra Gunawan. And it was a beautiful service. It was the 20th anniversary of his death. And as he was dying, I was newer in recovery, though I'd had a decade plus by that point. And Putra and I talked often. We talked about so many things, life, death. We knew it was coming soon. He was perfectly comfortable with it. We gave thanks for the life and the 20 years we had with him. It wasn't sad in that sense. There's never enough time. I don't care how long you've been with a loved one. We'd want more. And certainly as an addict, I want more. But we were grateful. We gave great thanks. And one thing we talked about would be, oh, wouldn't it be marvelous? And this is long before they became established in Bali. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a house in which miracles could take place? And so Putra and I made notes of it. And I said to him, what would we call it? And he said, oh, Ruma Ajaib, House of Miracles. And right there on my desk, I have that original notebook, and I've always kept it there. Well, on my birthday, my Bali birthday day, as we drove in, I looked up and I said, Putra, it's happened. It's here. It's got a little different name. It's called Ruma Sahaja, and it is a house of miracles. And it was a miracle in my life. And I wanted to share that with you in these years and years of broadcasts that I've been doing. We've known wonderful times to celebrate. We've known difficult times to celebrate. But we've always been together. And I wanted to share, while it took 20 years for that dream to come true, and that dream to come true in the way that God felt it should happen, and it has, I give thanks, because that was one of those precious moments in life where reality was, what a blessing. But what a blessing it has been in the journey to arrive at that point. And now we go onward. Yes, onward in love and caregiving. So today, as we sing for all the saints above and the saints below, let us remember that third verse of that hymn, which we will sing shortly. O blessed communion, fellowship divine, we feebly struggle, they in glory shine, yet all are one in thee, for all are thine. Alleluia, alleluia, amen. Thank you for joining me this morning. Have a wonderful week. God bless. And as always, onward in love and caregiving. I'll see you real soon. Thank you.